Today, we will show you 8 unique people with missing body parts. Included are people who live a happy life despite extreme circumstances, and patients who are considered real medical miracles. We'll also reveal who voluntarily had various body parts removed, and what exactly drove them to do so. It's going to be very exciting, so be sure to stay tuned here at Wonderlane. By the way, feel free to write us in the comments which part of your body you like the most. We are curious. Number 8. Let's start our list with a man who was truly heartless, in the truest sense of the word, because Craig Lewis from the USA was the first person to survive completely without a heart, and therefore without a heartbeat. But how was that even possible? Craig Lewis from Texas suffered from a disease called amyloidosis, a disorder in which abnormally altered proteins are deposited between cells and can affect the entire body. Lewis's heart was already affected, and he knew that he would not survive the disease. His attending physician at the Texas Heart Institute in Houston also only saw one option. In 2011, he removed the 55-year-old's heart and inserted a homemade machine instead. The artificial heart had previously been successfully tested on more than 70 calves, and rather than pulsing, caused the blood to swirl through the body in a continuous flow. And indeed, Craig Lewis recovered quickly from his exertions. The evening after his surgery, he was already working on his computer again, and he gradually got used to the fact that instead of a heartbeat, he now heard a buzzing in his body. The ECG also showed only a flat line for him. After 5 weeks with the unique artificial heart, Craig Lewis closed his eyes forever. He did not die from the device in his chest, but from amyloidosis, which had already affected his other organs. Now let's move on to the US American Tina Earls. The young mother received the devastating diagnosis of nasal cancer in 2014. All therapies failed, and the cancer even threatened her eyesight. Her brain and esophagus were also in danger, and the young woman had to make an extreme decision. She had her nose removed, even though she didn't know at the time if she would ever be able to smell anything again. After the operation, Tina Earls initially fell into a deep hole. She was afraid of how her children would react, and she was also very hurt by the looks she received from passers-by. After 6 months, she finally got a prosthetic nose, but even that did not bring back her self-confidence. It felt like a foreign body, and after 2 years, she finally had the courage to show herself in public without a nose. Today, she finally feels beautiful again and is proud of what she has achieved. She also wants to be a role model for other people who do not conform to the classic beauty ideals. In this way, she proves that everyone is beautiful. Christian Buchanan from the USA is a happy 8-year-old boy who loves to laugh, tell jokes, or play with his little brother. But the student from Texas was born without eyes and was born with a rare malformation, Tessier facial cleft with microphthalmia. There are just 60 known cases of this in medical history. Christian has had to undergo 7 reconstructive surgeries due to his special deformity, and has been dependent on a feeding tube since his 4th day of life. Despite all these obstacles, the student leads a full life. He learns to read Braille, goes to karate training, and even learns to play the violin. Yet, he is constantly subjected to hostility and nasty taunts. Even adults avoid him or make inappropriate remarks. Christian suffers greatly as a result. For this reason, his mother has dared to take the step into the public eye. She wants to create more acceptance, understanding, and respect for people with a disability. We continue with the 36-year-old Tiffany Geigel. The young woman from the USA was born with Jarcho-Levin syndrome, a skeletal deformity that makes Tiffany just 120 centimeters tall and has no neck. In addition, her ribs and vertebrae are extremely deformed, and her organs have not been able to develop properly. Nevertheless, Tiffany Geigel always held on to her dreams and attended a ballet school at the age of 3. Today, she has turned her hobby into a profession. She teaches herself at a dance school and even appears on stage on Broadway. Tiffany has even even made television appearances and written her own biography. The 36-year-old is also very active on Instagram, and she wants to prove that everyone can make their dream come true. Henry Gustav Meliasan, or Patient HM, is an absolute medical miracle because he was the man without a brain, or rather, the man without a hippocampus and amygdala. These are the parts of the limbic system that are responsible, among other things, for transferring memory content from short-term to long-term memory. His condition was caused by an operation in 1953, when Meliasan was suffering from severe epileptic seizures, which were to be cured by removing parts of his brain. And indeed, his doctor managed to stop the seizures, but the young man suffered from severe anterograde amnesia afterwards. That means Meliasan could no longer store new events in his long-term memory, and immediately forgot everything that happened more than 30 seconds ago. However, he was able to remember events from his life before the surgery well, and he thus virtually always lived in the past. Meliasan also did not lose the ability to learn new motor skills. Instead, he learned to play golf even after his surgery and became better at it. He could never remember his previous games and always assumed he was a natural. Meliasan had lived in a nursing home since the age of 54, and until his death in 2008, he participated in studies off and on. To this day, people with brain diseases benefit from the knowledge gained thanks to Meliasan's medical history. We continue with Paul Alexander from the USA, better known as the man with the iron lung. In 1952, at the age of just 6, the 75-year-old contracted the insidious disease polio, which mainly affects children. He was paralyzed from the neck down and could no longer breathe. Therefore, his only chance was a device called an iron lung. Since that day, 69 years ago, Paul spends just about every moment of his life in this machine. It is the only thing that keeps him alive, because the iron lung creates a negative pressure around the patient's chest and sucks air into his lungs in this way. Giving up was never an option for Alexander. Instead, he studied law, became a respected lawyer, and even traveled halfway around the world with his iron lung. And the 75-year-old is campaigning to keep children vaccinated against the polio virus. He even wrote a book and is proud of what he has achieved despite all the adversities in his life. Let's move on to the US American Dallas Wiens. Now only 36 years old, he suffered severe burns to his face in an accident at work when he was just 23. While painting a church, he accidentally hit a high voltage line. He was hospitalized with severe injuries and lost his eyes, nose, and lips in the accident. After several operations, his face consisted only of transplanted skin, and he became known worldwide as the man without a face. Wiens returned to his family, but the then 23-year-old no longer dared to go out in public and lived a very isolated life. In March 2011, however, his life took a different turn. In a 15-hour operation and with the help of 30 doctors, the man had his face transplanted from a donor. This made Wiens the first US citizen to have a complete face transplant performed on him. It was the first operation of its kind in the US, and the third in the entire world. Just 2 months later, the young man appeared in public, and his life took another unexpected turn. At a support group for victims of severe burns, he met his partner, Jamie, whom he married in 2013. Today, the couple, along with Vienna's daughter and 2 other children, live together in Texas and have established a foundation. While everyone in our list has to deal with their fate involuntarily, the man on our number 1 voluntarily gives up parts of his body. Eric Ramirez from Colombia has a bizarre wish. The 25-year-old wants to look like a living skeleton. For this, he changed his body not only by tattoos, piercings, and implants. He even went one step further and voluntarily had his ears and even part of his nose removed. Allegedly, he was fascinated by skulls even as a child, but after his mother died at an early age, his extreme physical transformation began. Calico's skull, as the Colombian calls himself today, had the lower half of his nose and his ears surgically removed. Previously, the body artist had his eyes and eye sockets tattooed black. Although the 25-year-old is extremely provocative with his appearance, Ramirez does not want to be reduced to his appearance. On the contrary, surgical procedures on the body are personal decisions for him and should not be condemned. For him, the operations were a dream coming true, and he planned further procedures to complete his transformation into a living skull. The fact that many do not show understanding for this, and that his appearance rather frightens them, does not bother him. That's it for our video. Feel free to write us in the comments which person or which fate impressed you the most. Otherwise, like this video if you enjoyed it, and until next time, here at Wonderlane.